guys, welcome back to the channel. Over the years, I've managed to become a really big and consistent saver, and a big reason for this is because I don't waste money on these 8 things. Brand new cars. I don't ever plan on buying a brand new car. They are just such a significant and unnecessary expense, and they lose most of their value within a few years. They're by far one of the easiest and most common ways you can set yourself back years in your financial life. And it's not only because the purchase cost is so expensive, but it's the ongoing costs like the higher insurance costs and the service and the maintenance fees that come with fancy new cars, as well as big interest payments if you've used finance to buy the car, which you should also never do. You'll hear me say again and again on this channel that if you want to be wealthy, you need to minimize what you spend on things that go down in value. For me, I do have a small car at the moment, which would be worth a few grand if I sold it today. I have it because my parents live a couple of hours away and I need the car to drive down there to visit them. But if not for that, I don't think I'd have a car at all, to be honest. I live pretty close to the city, so I'd be able to just get around by public transport and by foot, which is what I do the vast majority of the time anyway. Sometimes my car just sits there for weeks without using it. And when I eventually need to replace my car, I'm not going to buy a brand new one. I'm just going to buy a reliable used car with cash. At the end of the day, a car is just a mode of transport. Its job is to get you from point A to point B reliably and safely. And there's plenty of used cars out there which can serve this role if you're willing to do a little bit of research. They are not all just heaps of junk, which is a common misconception. The truth is that you never need a new car. You might want one, but you don't need one. The majority of the time that people decide to buy a brand new car isn't because their old car no longer works or suits their needs. It's because they want a flashy new car to impress other people and boost their ego. This usually comes from them seeing someone they know who has bought a nice new car recently and then comparing themselves to that person. These kinds of people unfortunately fall into the trap of seeing a car as a part of their identity rather than just a way of getting around. So the reason I don't have any real temptation to buy a brand new car is twofold. Firstly, I'm not a car guy. I don't care about cars. They don't interest me at all. They're just not my thing. And secondly, and more importantly, it's because I know deep down that what car I drive doesn't define who I am. I'm not the car I drive. I don't value myself or other people based on the car they drive. So a useful thought experiment to not fall into this trap is to imagine that someone asks you to describe your best friend or your partner or someone you love to them. What's going to happen is you're going to tell that person things like you love how smart, kind, thoughtful, funny, and generous they are. You're not going to say things like what car they drive or how much money they have. These things won't even come to mind because they're not at all relevant. So the question becomes, why then do you put so much importance on superficial things like this when it comes to yourself? And there's no good answer to that. It doesn't matter at all. The people who are meant to be in your life will love you for you. So brand new cars don't matter. Number 2, unused and unnecessary subscriptions or memberships. Now, this is a sneaky one that catches many people out. I think it's safe to say that most people have some unused or excessive subscriptions to streaming platforms like Netflix, Disney+, Amazon Prime, which they barely, if ever, use. If you enjoy them, that's fine, that's great. I have Disney+ myself because it has all the Star Wars content and I love that stuff. But you should probably just use one at a time instead of 4 or 5 streaming platforms. It'll help you watch a lot less TV as well. Leakage of your money through unused subscriptions and memberships is sort of a death by 1,000 cuts, because although most subscriptions are relatively inexpensive, they really do add up when you put them together and you get hit with them every month. These days, there's lots of promotional free trials for all different kinds of things, ranging from 1 week up to even 6 months. So have a look out for these kinds of things and take advantage of them. And importantly, put a reminder in your calendar when the free trial ends so that you can cancel it before you're charged. At this point in the video, I just want to quickly say that if you're getting something out of the video, it would be fantastic if you could take a moment to consider subscribing and hitting the like button. It really does help out the channel, gets YouTube to put more of my content in front of more people who could use it just like you. And also feel free to drop a comment below if there's anything that you don't waste your money on that I don't mention in this video. I'm always keen to hear your guys' ideas, and it's also just a great way for us to help each other out too. Number 3, eating out and delivery services. I probably eat out once or twice a month as a treat and when hanging out with my friends and stuff like that. But it's not anything fancy, it's just usually at like a family style restaurant or at a pub or something. And I never use meal delivery services like Uber Eats or Menulog. There's a couple of reasons for this. First is that I like to look after my health, so I'm conscious of what I eat. And number 2, the prices that you're being asked to pay when you eat out, and especially when you use the meal delivery services, are just absolutely exorbitant. You're paying such a premium for the convenience, and to me, it's just not worth it at all. I think of it this way: my average weekly grocery bill, just for me, is about $75. But if I were to eat out or order dinner on Uber Eats, I'd be lucky to keep just one meal at less than $75. That's my whole weekly grocery spend on one meal. So if you're regularly eating out and using Uber Eats, then you're probably spending hundreds of dollars a week on food. So eliminating this and instead preparing home-cooked meals is a really simple way to just potentially save thousands of dollars a year. It will also do a lot of good for your health. The 4th one is daily coffees and lunches at work. It's become a norm to just grab a couple of coffees a day and go buy some lunch when you're in the office. Because this is such a socially acceptable thing to do, most people would have no idea how much they're actually spending on this. And if you break it down, having a couple of $5 coffees a day and spending 20 bucks on lunch, that's $30 a day. If you work in the office 5 days a week and you calculate this over a year, you're spending over $7,000 a year on coffee and lunch while at work. To me, this is absolutely crazy, and you could just make your lunch for a whole week for less than $30. And you could bring your own coffee or just use the free coffee stuff supplied in the office. If you don't do this, you're probably spending at least 5 times more than you should on lunch and coffee while you're at work. So making your own food and drinking coffee supplied for free in the office is an easy way to potentially save yourself thousands of dollars a year. And if your work colleagues ask you to go downstairs and grab coffee, you can still join them, but just say that you'll quickly make yourself a coffee in the office, or that you'll just bring your water bottle down instead, or that you've brought your own sandwich today. It's not really a big deal, so don't feel like you're pressured into spending money on this stuff or that you have no choice. And spending a bunch of money every day on coffee and lunch sort of defeats the purpose of going to work to some extent, because you're spending a chunk of your income to just sustain yourself while at work earning that same income. Number 5, unnecessary upgrades. I always find it really interesting to look around when I'm on the train or something and to see that almost nobody has a phone that's more than a few years old. No matter what their salary or savings, everybody seems to be able to find the money for a new phone. And this is a common area where I think people waste their money on new tech gadgets that they don't need, like phones and laptops, TVs, and all that sort of stuff. It all comes from FOMO, the comparison mindset that because you see other people with the thing, that you also have to have the thing too. I think to avoid this, you just need to focus on what's important to you and what you actually need, rather than comparing yourself to others and letting that dictate your spending behavior. Personally, I don't really care about that stuff. A little example is that I still have an iPhone 7 because it's all I need, and I've got to say, it's a really liberating thing. I have so much more freedom to spend my money on the things that truly add value to my life, because it's not being drained away through this endless spending on new tech gadgets. Of course, like if you need a new phone or a laptop because they're not working or they're not reliable anymore, then by all means get one. To be honest, my old phone's battery life, it has a limited lifespan now. I know that I'm gonna have to replace it soon, but when it comes time to replace it, I'm gonna be honest with myself about what I really need, so that I'm being sensible with how much I spend on a new phone. As a tip, it's a good idea to look at buying something that's a couple of versions older than the current model, because it will often do the exact same thing but will be a lot cheaper than the latest and greatest version. Number 6 for things I don't waste my money on is new clothes. I think most of you would agree with me that most people own way too many clothes. They probably don't even wear half the stuff that they own, and their current wardrobe is most likely more than they will ever need for years to come. I think this goes to show that buying new clothes is an unnecessary expense most of the time. Apart from a few items, I haven't bought new clothes in a long time. Most of my clothes are about 10 years old, and even still, I have so many clothes that I don't even wear or remember I had. Other than simply not buying more clothes, another thing you can do to save heaps on clothes is to buy secondhand. I know some of you might cringe at the idea of wearing someone else's clothes, but I do know quite a few people who do this, and they pick up some really nice stuff that's barely been worn for super cheap. And you would be very surprised, I think, by how good the stock is, and a couple of $100 can go a long way if you buy secondhand. All you need to do is give the clothes a wash after you buy them and you're set. Nobody will ever know the difference. Another thing I would never do is buy a new outfit just for one occasion, like a wedding or a party or something like that. This can be a really big area of expense. I know that not everyone owns that particular color of suit or the style of dress or fancy dress costume that they might need to wear for that event, but if you find yourself in that situation, as a first step, I'd suggest just trying to borrow something from a friend, or in the worst case, hiring an outfit for the day. It will be a lot cheaper than spending a bunch of money on something that you're only ever going to use once. If you're going to use it again in the future, however, well, that's obviously a different story. Number 7 for things I don't waste my money on is brand names. One of the biggest ways I avoid wasting money is I don't buy the well-known or luxury brands unless there's some sort of amazing sale. The truth is you pay an absolute premium for buying the brand, and people often justify it by saying that they're buying a quality product. This is sometimes true. Sometimes you need a reliable brand for certain products. However, a lot of the time, this is just a waste of your money. For example, a fair price for a regular t-shirt today is probably about $10 to $15. But if you slap a certain brand label on it, it all of a sudden becomes a $60 t-shirt or even more, which I think is just crazy. At the end of the day, the t-shirt is just a small piece of fabric which costs the manufacturer next to nothing to make. You see the same thing with Apple and Samsung smartphones. The price of their phones is just way more than the price of basically any other brand, although many smartphones have very similar features and capabilities. The same goes for all other kinds of products like cars and electronics, household goods, and so on. And I'm not saying just buy the cheapest thing all the time and don't worry about quality, but I'm just saying there's often a point where you can buy a product that's just as good as the one sold by the fancy brand, but for a lot less money. If you go beyond this point and you have a situation where you're not getting any more value for the extra money you're paying, then you're really just buying the brand for social acceptance or to impress others. And as for high-end luxury brands like Chanel and Gucci, Louis Vuitton, that's just the kind of stuff I would never even consider buying. There's just no value for money in these things, and it's just all about status and ego at that point. Nothing else is driving the desire for that purchase. Number 8 is bad habits. A lot of bad habits can be very expensive, like smoking and indulging too much in things like drinking and eating junk food. I actually had to look this up because I'm not a smoker, but I found that a pack of cigarettes today in Australia is about $60. That means that a pack-a-day smoker would spend over $20,000 a year on cigarettes. The average salary in Australia as of 2023 was $95,000, which would be about $72,000 after tax. So if you earn an average salary and you smoke a pack a day, then you're spending about 30% of your net income on cigarettes, which kill you. Limiting the amount of alcohol that I drink is also a big thing I do to avoid wasting money. I drink socially, but I try to limit how much I drink out in pubs because it's something like $12 a beer and $17 a pint in the city. So I prefer to pick up my drinks from the liquor store in bulk when it's only a few bucks per drink. And lastly, I avoid spending lots of money on junk food when I do my grocery shop. It can really add a lot to your food bill if you're not disciplined around this, and the mistake most people make is that they group this under their essential spending on their food budget when it's actually discretionary spending. The good news is avoiding wasting money on any of these bad habits will not only save you a ton of money, but they're also going to do wonders for your health. So those are 8 things I don't waste my money on. As you've probably picked up on throughout the video, all of this really comes down to behavior, which is totally within your control, whether it's mastering some simple habits and attitudes towards money, or whether it's just getting to know yourself a little bit better and not letting social expectations and ego drive your spending. But that'll do me for today, guys. If you found the video useful and you're interested in learning more about other money traps people fall into, you'll love this video that's going to pop up on your screen right about now about the biggest money habits keeping people poor. Please also remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It really does make a difference. But that's all for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.